It's time for AggroChat, the official podcast of the Tales of the Aggronaut blog and stalwart gaming community, where we talk about stuff and things, and the stuff about the things, and sometimes gaming. I'm Belgast, and let's start the show. Hey folks, it's that time again. Time for another episode of AggroChat. This is episode 242. Tonight I'm joined by Ashgar.
Hello.
Kodra.
Hi.
Tam.
Hey.
And Thanlin.
Hello.
So, tonight, y'all are going to have to carry me through the show because, I've done nothing but play a lot of Anthem. And, thankfully, Tam has a bunch of topics that have rolled over and other ones that have been added, so I think we have a show.
Tam's also super sick.
I think everyone has been sick. There's been a thing going around that, I think I've had twice, and everybody else at work has had multiple times, so...
It sucks. Don't work. Not recommended.
Yeah.
Nope.
Not a good time.
Half a star.
Okay, Tam. The topic that has bounced numerous times. I have no idea how to kick this off.
Oh yeah, I got it. So Anthem really drives this home for me. So it's kind of topical, but I remember growing up playing RPGs. The protagonist didn't say words ever, and I remember it was meant to be this super blank slate, super whatever you want to imprint on this character.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really interesting to me going back and playing some of those older games. And I remember, especially when I was younger, not liking when my character had a voice.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
It frustrated me because it wasn't me, it was somebody else. And I remember, I distinctly remember kind of bouncing off of Xenogears right off the bat because of that. And I came back to it later, and it's one of my favorite RPGs ever.
That sort of gets into a different style thing because Japanese RPGs are traditionally never designed to be blank slates.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for me, that's super interesting because I got into it from super blank slatey characters. And American RPGs, as soon as you left the kind of adventure, point and click adventures, and even a lot of those, Quest for Glory definitely had really blank slatey characters that didn't have a voice. You didn't even have, there were never even words put into the character's mouth.
Yeah. Well, in those cases, it was very much meant to be characters that you created yourself, like a D&D character.
Yeah.
So they didn't even have the implied personality that, say, King Graham or Roger Wilco had.
Right, yeah. And King Graham and Roger Wilco had, quite a bit of personality.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something that I've done because I've written dialogue for video games that's meant to be blank slatey dialogue where you're not supposed to put too much emphasis on the character's personality. And it's really interesting because it's incredibly hard to do. Dialogue is so much less snappy when only one side of it has a personality. But for me, it's sort of this interesting thing where a lot of different characters will have different games will have different characters with voices versus unvoiced protagonists, and sometimes it works way better than others. Just from a few of the ones that I've been thinking of, it feels like this continual push and pull throughout the industry. It's not one of those. It isn't should you use a joystick or a mouse to control the view in a first-person shooter? Because that was definitely a debate for years, and then it was resolved. Is it better to have full party control, full customization, as if every character in your party were a protagonist, versus one main protagonist with all the customizations, and then a bunch of party members that have less, but are still customizable, but not as much. And that seems to have been answered with RPGs as well.
Mm-hmm.
But it's interesting to me that this one isn't. It's still still stylistic. Especially the games I've been playing that made me think about it. Hitman, the first, I'll call it the first arc of Hitman games. Silent Assassin, original Hitman 2, all the way up until the reboot, 47 had no personality, like intentionally none. And in the more recent ones, he's got this. He's still he's intentionally a kind of blank slate character, but he's witty. He does have a personality. It's just a super understated one, and it's a super like intense and serious one versus not having any at all.
See, I remember growing up, I really wanted a lot of my characters to have more personality. I was looking forward to seeing these stories that I was playing have more fleshed out characters. I remember being like really excited about the concept of, hey, are we going to have a voiced Link one of these days?
Yeah, I find that fascinating.
Because I did find like the story kind of thin. Like you're telling this grand epic adventure. And I feel like in some ways, I'm especially looking at some of the more recent additions to that, they've actually gone away from like it's even less story. There's even less story in those Zelda games. Like when you compare the plot of Ocarina of Time or what is it, Wind Waker to like Skyward Sword or Breath of the Wild.
Yeah.
Like those were stories that you were playing through versus like these are worlds you are exploring and there's stories that you can there's some lore elements you can find. It's interesting you mentioned like JRPGs because I feel like some of the games that are, and maybe this is just because they are originated in such old formats, but like Mario, Metroid, Zelda are all games that are very much silent protagonists, like the most silent protagonists. They don't even have any lines for the most part.
Well, and then on the RPG side, Chrono Trigger, like Chrono is one of the classic silent protagonists.
Cloud. I mean, Cloud
has lines.
He has lines. Squall has lines too. But like
Cloud has considerably more lines than Squall does.
It's true. Well, Squall has a bunch of ellipses as lines.
Yeah, same with Chrono. ...
Yeah.
Like, Cloud has a personality in FF7.
It's true.
It's been obscured in all the material since FF7.
Well, yes.
Mm-hmm.
But it's interesting because like FF7, I feel like FF7 and FF8, like FF6 has a whole bunch of characters with, I don't want to, I make me unpopular, but I hesitate to say developed personalities, but personalities you can understand.
Yeah.
Some of them are developed, but some of them are not. Many of them are not.
And it's very much an ensemble cast to the point that they're like, you could argue over, who for you the protagonist of Final Fantasy VI is. Like, there's one character that is like clearly the protagonist of the story as they intended, but like a lot of times Terra's not even in your party.
Yeah.
I mean, I always thought Locke was the protagonist
because that's who you're playing initially, and he's the Han Solo character. I don't know. I think that's. I mean, one of many things that I like about Final Fantasy XIV is that my character isn't voiced and has the personality that I want to give them, and he's not a silent protagonist to the point that he doesn't have lines, but he sure nods a lot.
Well,
and when he does have lines, I'm usually given a choice of different like ways to take things.
I feel like Final Fantasy XIV and Secret World are both doing unvoiced protagonists slightly different, but they're both. There's a self-awareness in both cases.
Yeah,
which is what makes it work.
Yeah.
Like, there's some fourth wall breaking happening that, like, everyone knows you can't talk.
Half-Life did that too. Like, especially later on in the episodes.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Half-Life definitely made a lot of jokes about that.
But without that, like, it would feel weird. Like, without that awareness of, oh, yeah, no, this is a trope, we get it. Like, it's not perfect, but it's giving us the leverage that we want for the player to be able to fill themselves into this spot.
Yeah, but on the other end of that, how often have you chosen a dialogue option in Mass Effect or Dragon Age and been annoyed that it didn't come out the way you were expecting?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, often, yeah.
All the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
More so in Dragon Age.
At least in Anthem, I don't have to worry about it, like, changing the story quite to the same degree, but...
I've mentioned this a few times, and they stopped doing this as the Mass Effect series went on. The first game had a lot of times where multiple dialogue options would have the exact same voice line
Uh-huh.
that you would then read different things into based on the dialogue option you chose.
Yeah, and I can't decide if I think that's clever or what.
It's clever until
Clever until you find out.
Yeah, it's clever until you go to play through the game a second time and realize what's going on.
Yeah, and I know in my case, I've gotten, and it was really Mass Effect that drove it home for me. But like Horizon Zero Dawn with Aloy is another one where like I actually have come to really prefer the voiced protagonist dialogue.
Yeah.
I found it really jarring in like Fallout 4 compared to like Skyrim.
I can see that.
That might also be just because they didn't have as much practice with it.
That's fair.
I feel like my reaction to it is different depending on the type of game I'm playing. Like if I'm playing a MMO or MMO Lite, I'm expecting to put myself in this character. Like it's me in this world. It's a version of me. Whereas if I'm playing like God of War or if I'm playing Horizon Zero Dawn, I'm playing a character. So like I am not expecting to have a box that I stick me in while I'm playing that game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
And there's a difference between the two. Like it feels weird, honestly, to have the voice protagonist in Anthem to some extent, especially when like it's not things that I probably would have said.
Yeah.
And I had kind of the same problem with Anthem. I think like games that do it better though are the ones where they give you like, here's a choice of different like actors, which don't exist that often anymore.
It's really expensive.
Yeah, but like there used to be a couple games that I'm trying to blank on which ones.
Saints
like,
Row comes to mind immediately.
Yeah.
Where like you would have different voice actors to like.
And they recorded a lot of lines in that game in multiple voice actors.
It's true. I mean, for me, it's one of the reasons, and it's what I'm doing in Anthem. It's what I've done in other games. I played the Anthem demo as the male freelancer, but in live, I'm playing as the female freelancer because it gives me that like whenever she speaks, I'm like, oh right, I'm playing a character, and so I enjoy her dialogue way more than if it were like, no, I wouldn't say this. And I wonder how much of it is like that little UI element of put in your name here, or like customizing your your character.
Yeah, I think it's for me. It's if I have a character designer, if I have character customization, then I kind of expect this to be my character with the personality that I want them to have. Whereas if it's a game where, like Horizon Zero Dawn, I'm playing Aloy. I'm not playing a character I created. It's Aloy. I don't even like get to change her name.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, she has her own personality.
But I bet the engagement for those kinds of games is lower.
For what?
Games that RPGs that don't let you do any character customization outside of hot nonsense like Metal Gear Solid.
I mean, so
or Warframe that shows you a character customization screen like
40, 50 hours
40,
in.
Yeah, by the time you get to character customization, you've already gotten used to it being a game that doesn't have that thing.
It's really weird with that one too, because it still doesn't feel like that's your character. My relationship with Warframe is especially weird because it's like I still feel like I am this thing inhabiting this Warframe, and then my operator is coming in and telling me stuff like periodically.
I turned that off because I think it's weird.
That's really interesting. Like, in the context of this discussion, that's really interesting, because I feel like that would put the game in a different context for you.
A little bit.
Because then you do get to sort of imagine you're the operator, where I'm like, I'm not really the operator, I'm sort of these machines being inhabited by this ghost of a child, maybe. Listen, the narrative...
Warframe's a really weird game.
I mean, yes. Warframe has a very odd narrative, and it doesn't tell itself to you honestly initially.
Oh no, it sure doesn't. It continues to not be honest with you for a very long time.
I mean, it can be argued how much it's currently being honest with its players, but hey, we'll get there, I'm sure.
And it's kind of what I love about it. And sort of the other side of that, just because I was thinking about it, was because like yeah, you get the operator in Warframe, and they have this voice, and you're like, what? Spoilers, I guess. Or
It's
I mean,
many years old content at this point.
3-year-old spoilers, but
Yeah.
It's
right.
still treated as a spoiler.
it's true. So I apologize for Warframe players who might be listening. You won't understand what I'm talking about until you get there.
Honestly, yeah.
But the other piece of it is, so I remember we were talking about Quest for Glory and like Space Quest and so on before, and I remember where they got their snappy lines because those games had a narrator.
Yep.
And the narrator was kind of a jerk.
Yeah. I mean,
And,
that's part of why
like-
Space Quest 4 is probably my very favorite, because Gary Owens was the narrator, and he was fantastic.
Yeah. Like you had narrators intentionally being cheesy, like doing the cheesy like pulp sci-fi narrator voice.
It's like, and being really, really snarky about it when you died.
Yeah. Or even not. Like even if you just did regular things. Like to the point where I remember in Space Quest 6, like Roger has an argument with the narrator at one point. It's great. It's hilarious. And I loaded up Hero U, which is the like very obvious spiritual successor to Quest for Glory by Corey and Laurie Cole.
Yep.
And I don't like it because there's no narrator. All of those lines are on the protagonist. And so the protagonist is kind of insufferable.
Yeah.
Like
I can definitely see that. It would be like, so there's lots of different ways to, I always bring this back to comic books somehow. There's lots of different ways to get information across to the reader in a comic book. And, one of the classic ones is caption boxes with a narrator. Another one is just having the characters say the stuff out loud and like telling you what's happening in the panel.
Yeah.
And Boyd is having the characters just say the stuff out loud. It's a lot wordier, and it just feels really stilted and off and cheesy. And the narrator boxes, like it can still get like, you can still be like full of really purple prose, but it's kind of okay because it's narration. It's not the characters saying it. It's meant to be like a third person, like omniscient remarking on everything.
Yeah.
Well, it's Orson Welles in War of the Worlds.
Yeah.
Like it's this narrator over top of everything.
Because yeah, the omniscient kind of a jerk narrator in the old Sierra games was was a jerk, but like was a jerk who was along for the ride.
Yeah, I mean they were kind of taking the piss out of the goofy things in the game.
Yeah.
And making fun of you when you did stupid things for, game reasons.
And you did a lot of stupid things.
And you're like, yeah, that was a stupid thing that I did. You're right. Maybe I shouldn't have picked up the unstable ordnance out of that, rusted out tank.
Yeah. Or like, you take a drink of alcohol. Good job, hero. And I think this is part of why The Longest Journey was so good. Because again, that's a voiced protagonist, and she did comment on like the various stuff you looked around and clicked on and so on. But it was very in character.
I feel
One
like
of
the
the
closest
only-
thing we have to a narrator nowadays in most games is things like, the Cortex in Anthem.
Or, the narrator in Bastion. Like, that's the one I was thinking of.
That's true. That actually does have a narrator. And it was a big deal that it had a narrator.
Yeah.
Like, it was weird and different.
Divinity Original Sin 2 has a voiced narrator. I think
So
that's
there-
weird.
There are a couple of games that tried to sort of give pseudo narrators. The one I think about is, I feel like Three Dog kind of fit the bill of the narrator in Fallout 3.
Yeah, and Mr. New Vegas to a much less of an extent.
Yeah.
Yeah, at least in remarking on the things that you did, although they weren't doing it like simultaneously with you doing them. It's after the fact, so.
I
yeah.
will say, though, Mr. New Vegas, though, fit the vibe of Fallout New Vegas. Like, largely because it was a detached narrator.
I mean,
'Cause, like,
also it was
everything
actually
was-
Wayne Newton.
Well, yeah, but, like, everything was
But
way
yeah.
less attached to him because, like, he's in New Vegas. Like, he's in Civilization. Like, and everything that happens in the Wasteland is, like, trivial compared to the folks in Civilization.
Yeah, like that's outside the walls. It's interesting to hear about, but it doesn't really affect us.
I think all of Supergiant's games have a narrator in some form, because Transistor and Pyre both do.
Yep.
That's true.
And like
Pyre
who the
has an
narrator?
actively
hostile
narrator.
Oh
Yeah.
yes. Pyre's. I think one of the reasons that I wound up liking Pyre is it reminded me of the Space Quest narrator. Except you actually get to go punch that guy.
Yes.
It's like he's just getting madder and madder at you as the game goes on.
Their upcoming game is going to have several narrators, competing narrators almost. Actually, but it's weird because your character fills the role of the narrator in the new one, like self-narration type of stuff. I kind of want to talk about Persona 3 because Persona 3 is an interesting game where you do have because of the golden version, you can have two completely different characters.
4?
Is that Persona 4?
I mean, there's Persona 3 and Persona 4 and Persona 5, and they all have different protagonist voicing things.
No. I didn't think Persona 4 let you play the game as a completely different character.
Oh yeah, Persona.
No, that's
Persona,
23. Yeah,
yeah. Persona 3 does have two completely different characters.
but no golden versions.
Yeah, 3 isn't golden.
Sorry.
3 has a disaster of alternate versions you can play.
Right. I know you can play that game as a completely different protagonist, which is really interesting to me.
Yeah, and she does the thing where you can like heavily alter the personality you project by your choice of dialogue. Very like early BioWare where they show you the full dialogue line.
Mm-hmm.
I will say at some point my taste shifted because early on in RPGs I was super into the Final Fantasy 1 style of characters where like these are me, like it's a party that I created myself. And then I played Final Fantasy 2, aka Final Fantasy 4, and I'm like, oh, this is kind of cool for all these characters to have their own personalities.
The actual FF2 also did that.
Yeah.
Oddly.
Well, so the thing is like when Baldur's Gate came out, I kind of bounced off of it because the characters in the original Baldur's Gate didn't seem as fully fleshed out as what I was seeing from the JRPGs that I was playing.
It's true.
However, when Baldur's Gate 2 was released, they leaned into it hard, and I liked it so much better than the original Baldur's Gate, which is, I'm sure, blasphemy, but...
It's kind of not. That's the standard opinion.
Yeah, Baldur's Gate 2 was better.
I mean,
like, everything was way more
had
balanced.
happened in the meantime, so it's understandable.
Right, and Planescape was like, oh, maybe I should care about these games again, because this is so radically different.
Well, and it was also one where all of the NPCs had really deep, fleshed out personalities that really mattered and affected the story.
Right, I cared about, seeing all of their story. And really, like, late BioWare was kind of, especially Mass Effect was the renaissance of, I want to see every quest available for every single one of these characters. And especially Mass Effect 2, since there were so many freaking characters.
Yeah. Which
continued on into Dragon Age 2 when I played that, and even though there were characters that I just didn't care about, I was trying to see all the stories.
I guess that's technically true. I did not like Anders.
Broody McBroody Elf wasn't my favorite.
I thought he was hilarious. Not intentionally hilarious, but I thought he was hilarious.
Like, my problem with Anders is, like, I couldn't be nice to Anders without Anders trying to hit on me, or thinking I was hitting on him.
I think that goes back to a previous week's conversation.
Right, exactly, which gets back into the other conversation, like, you can't just have a buds option. It's either I am mean to this person or we're romancing.
Yeah, which I think is sort of it's a criticism I've seen of a lot of the sort of BioWare character options.
That was one of the things I really, really liked about Tyranny, was I could be nice to them, or I could be mean to them, and either way, like, I am improving my relationship with them and, getting deeper into their story.
I feel like Tyranny is way better of a game than anyone actually gives it credit for.
It's really good.
Like, we all loved that game, but I feel like it doesn't get the press that it should have gotten.
I totally agree with you, because I do not like Baldur's Gate games.
I liked Tyranny so much that I tried to get into Pillars of Eternity and couldn't.
Nope.
Yeah.
I feel like Tyranny was the Planescape Torment of that generation of the renaissance of PC CRPGs.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it did the thing that was so vastly different, and it's probably going to be another generation until we have a game quite so good and quite so different. But again, like, one of the strengths of Tyranny was all of the characters were interesting.
Yes.
Yeah.
They were all fully fleshed out characters. They had their own motivations that may or may not align with your motivations.
Yeah.
And
you could reasonably have a very wide spread of motivations.
Yeah, that was what I was gonna say, was I feel like part of that is it's really heavily based on the fact that your character does have a voice and does have a personality, and that because you do, you can play off of these other characters. They don't have to just monologue at you.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm sort of kind of like done with the voiceless protagonist for like a deep story thing. Like, I definitely have strong preference there.
Yeah, I'm largely in the same boat, but I remember being like strongly the other way. And also, wow, do I bounce off a game hard if I don't like the protagonist. If it's a voiced protagonist who I don't like,
yeah,
I bounce off that game real hard.
I do also find it, like, the BioWare problem still is very real, where I am frustrated when I am given voice, like, dialogue options, which makes it feel like I am making a choice here, and I hate all of my options. I would rather you not give me an option.
Yeah. And it makes me kind of wonder, like, what, if you had a system like that, what could you... I mean, I'm like, back of the napkin game designing now, but, like, if instead of choosing a dialogue option throughout the conversation, you were, like, choosing your emotional reactions to things.
Did you ever play Alpha Protocol?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking about. Something
Alpha
like that.
Protocol was weird
that game's
because...
general quality aside,
Right.
that was a very nice system.
It was really neat. And it's interesting that I haven't seen anything else trying that. I mean, not that there's a ton of RPGs doing that kind of dialogue, but...
I was gonna say, I feel like with Alpha Protocol, the addition of timing my, like, response, like, not giving me, like, time to think about how I wanted to respond, was an interesting game decision, and thanks, I hated it. I see what you're doing here. You're trying to make this feel like normal social interactions that already cause me anxiety.
Yep. Highly successful.
Thanks, I hate it. Now, another flip side of this, I'm reminded of games where they give you dialogue options, and then because of the state your character is in, like, your dialogue options don't work. I'm specifically thinking of A Night in the Woods.
Checks. Or that.
Where you're, like, completely drunk and you're like, yes, hello, good sir, I would like to have a conversation with you, and it just comes out like complete slurred gibberish and just makes everything awful.
That was entertaining as hell, though.
Yeah, but
that was absolutely on purpose.
It was on purpose, but it's also, like, denying you the agency of dialogue.
Yeah, and I feel like...
True, but May is definitely a character with a personality.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that there's some, like, you don't always have perfect control over the kinds of things you say, or how what you say, what you're thinking comes out of your mouth. And kind of interesting seeing that expressed in a game.
Yeah, so why do I find that really cool and interesting, and find, like, my moments when I'm dealing with Owen in Anthem, and I have two options to demean and belittle him, incredibly frustrating?
It's going to be really hard for some of us to answer that question.
Yep. There's a reason. I just didn't like the reason at the time, and I understand what they were trying to do, but, like, still didn't feel any better than it was.
I mean, I get what they were doing, because I am at least that far in the story, but it still made me angry at the time. And
yeah,
learning about the reason why didn't make me, like, retroactively feel better about that.
No, I hated it too. Like, it.
Yeah, it's like, it doesn't... It's a bad feeling when you know better than your character.
Mm-hmm.
But it's interesting because given just the state of video games, you would always know better than your character 100% of the time.
Well, because you're meta aware of the tropes.
Yeah, you're both meta aware of the tropes, and like maybe you have a guide.
No, it's fair. Yeah.
Like it takes you 30 seconds to pull up a what should I say here for the best result, or for whatever result I'm trying to get, and that it robs some of the it manages to rob some of the authenticity of the character in service of making you, the player, feel better. And that seems like an interesting trade-off to me, and one that games definitely make a lot of the time, Alpha Protocol notwithstanding. But yeah, I've been continually interested to see, like, once upon a time it was really only RPGs that were giving you stories, and so there's this whole like mechanical and just game tropes from that, but then you have this intersection of basically big AAA titles that are doing very serious storytelling and coming from a completely different angle. Like I'm thinking about like the Uncharted series, like Call of Duty Modern Warfare,
Madden.
Yeah.
Wait, what?
Yeah, Madden has a really complex story mode now. I've never actually played it, so I can't really comment.
I don't know enough about football to be able to comment on it, because I've played it, but I didn't really get it. But it is like, it's this incredibly detailed story arc that's clearly written by people who understand football stories. But I don't understand football stories enough to sort of look at it other than like, oh, this is the story they're telling.
Yeah, it's basically a sports movie condensed into a video game.
Yeah.
With like the
Fair
whole
enough.
underdog narrative and
That makes sense. I mean,
Fair enough.
it's wildly popular from what I can tell. Like it's
there's a big
off
audience
with
for sports
basketball.
movies. It makes sense that there would be an audience for sports games to have similar story.
Like the first one I think was basketball, and then it was FIFA, and this year was the first year for Madden.
And you create your player, right? And go through the story. Yeah. So you're
And
telling
you
your
have-
own Hollywood style sports movie.
Right, and you have apparently like choices that are made that like shift the results of the dialogue, and well, in the Horizon series of racing games had a little bit of that going on too.
Yeah.
Not
For the Horizon games.
Yeah,
Need for Speed, some of that too.
but ultimately the thing is everything is a role playing game now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like character advancement is just kind of a it's weird when a game doesn't have some form of character advancement.
RPG elements.
Yep.
Thanks, COD 4. I blame you.
Is that Modern Warfare?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know that Modern Warfare gets the credit it necessarily deserves for changing
All the things it did?
Yes.
So
It did a
very
lot
many
of
things it
things.
did.
It did a lot of things.
One of the biggest challenges facing narrative designers right now is the fact that like they're gonna have a bunch of different play styles playing the content, and I've seen it so much with Anthem. Like people talk about, oh well, I skipped every cutscene I could skip, and I didn't do any of the side quests, and I just did the main story. But now I'm complaining that the story feels hollow.
Yeah.
I mean, I kind of complained about that, and I'm told that's probably because I didn't do any of, like, I didn't skip cutscenes, but I didn't do, like, all of the incidental dialogues.
Yeah, like
I
more or less played the game by every time I came back to town, I cleared every dialogue option available to me.
And I understand, that sounds like it's the right way to play the game. But
But
like,
it also didn't tell you to do that.
yeah, it doesn't really teach you to do that, so if you don't know to do that, you're gonna get a not great experience.
Yeah, especially if you're kind of focused on what gives me progression.
Well, and if you came into this game to fly robot suits around and shoot things, then why do you want to spend a whole bunch of time not flying robot suits around and shooting things? Like I get that.
Well, I mean, I don't feel like even previous BioWare games really required you to, like, do all of the incidental dialogues in the Citadel.
See,
like,
that was where I learned this trait from, is from BioWare games where like
Finish a mission
Those
and
were
go
games
talk
that
to
I would
everybody on the
play-
Normandy.
Right, like those were games that I would play 2 or 3 times, and I would notice, oh crap, I totally missed this branch because I didn't talk to them at this point. So
Yeah,
as a result, like anytime I approach an RPG, like I try really hard to make sure I'm going back to town every single time and talking to everything that will talk to me, like
Yeah,
even
like,
inanimate objects.
The later Shadowrun games
Yeah,
also
those
kind of make me
have
think that.
Mm-hmm.
When we played Dragonfall and this glorious quest line entirely, because I didn't talk to her enough.
But to Kodra's point, Mass Effect doesn't let you, like, the story there is so rich and so complete that it doesn't let you not have a complete story,
Yeah.
because it spends a significant amount more time than Anthem does telling you story, that unavoidably.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, it has to be difficult as a narrative designer to build content that is not going to get consumed in the same way by every player.
Can confirm.
I mean, MMO players, no matter what they say, skip quest text. Like, it's just a thing.
I mean, especially if it's not voiced.
I mean, I was trying to play Objects in Space earlier today, and, like, it's all a ton of reading while making horrible teleprompter noises, and, like, I want to see what this game's about, but man, I bounced hard. I'm like, I will have to try this when I have more focus.
So I have sort of long since sort of crapped on Destiny's ability to tell stories.
Yes.
But I'm kind of in the boat that I feel like this games as a service concept, this sort of lobby-based looter shooter games as a service, might not be the best forum for storytelling. Because there's been several of these types of games now, and I'm not thrilled with any of their storytelling.
Yeah, I definitely have a this is good storytelling for this genre.
I feel like maybe it's not good storytelling, but I do think that there's some good world building.
Well, they're great at giving you lore in a codex.
But that's not story. I mean, that's a story about you reading in an encyclopedia.
Yeah. I mean, similarly, I actually think the one that I almost say tells the best story is the one that just makes its codex most available to you, which is Fallout 76. Like, I feel like all I'm doing there is being a, like, historian walking around doing an archaeological dig and, like, learning a story of a now destroyed world. But, like, that's not my story.
Yeah, you're kind of learning about other people's stories, which is interesting because I agree with Bell that there's a divide between storytelling and world building.
And that was my comment last week. Anthem does a lot of, that was one of my comments last week, is that Anthem does a lot of world building and has a lot of lore.
Yeah.
And weirdly enough, if it's a game that I'm going to spend a lot of time in, like, at this point, I've put in 116 hours into Anthem last I checked. I would rather have world building and lore than stories necessarily, because stories are fleeting.
Oh, I strongly disagree.
I kind of don't.
Yeah, I'm back and forth on that one because I'm thinking about Star Wars: The Old Republic, where it was all stories, and then you exhausted all the stories, and it was like, what am I even doing?
Then you stop playing the game.
Yep, then I stopped playing the game.
Okay, so this is a fair point. If the goal is
that game had a lot of story, but
I mean, Anthem's not a game you necessarily beat, nor was
Yeah.
Destiny.
Yeah, and that's the thing. In a game you're not supposed to beat, maybe having a story that ends doesn't make sense. But, like, I kind of don't want a game that I don't beat right now, maybe?
That could be.
I mean,
wonder...
and that's fair. Like, so for prime example is Void. Void does not like games that he can't beat. Like, this is a conversation he and I have had to where he'll play an MMO, but he will gobble up all the content and immediately leave. Like, he wants to beat games. Like, he wants to beat story. And occasionally there is an MMO that, like, he wants to know the story of. So he will come through and he will gobble up all the content, and then he will leave and wait until the next patch. And that's a perfectly valid way to play a game, but it is not the way that most MMOs are expecting you to play.
I feel like, at this point, I want a nice, reasonably paced, self-contained game. You know, like Persona 5. And it's funny. It's like we all laugh because that game is 120 hours. But after 120 hours, I'm done.
Yeah, and you can play New Game Plus if you want. But
I could, and maybe if they give me a new story, I'll go back and play that new story. Like I'll play it through again to get to the new story. But
but you can just be done, and that's fine.
I can just be done.
Yeah.
I can be, and like I can go on and I can get a new story, and that's kind of what I'm like. I want more stories in my game, and I feel like right now a lot of the big games are chasing the games as a service model, and they aren't. They're sort of failing me at telling me a story.
They don't give you any closure.
Right.
Yeah.
If the story never ends, then yeah.
But like I argue, that's not the point. That's not what they're trying to do. They're trying to tell you enough of a story to get you interested in the world, but mostly just have enough window dressing to give you a feel for the world as you're grinding in it.
So this is another interesting thing, because I feel like this is also kind of true for WoW. Like when I think of games with lore that I was really into, I loved the lore of WoW. And I loved it because it sort of gave me the space to tell my own story. But WoW also gave me spaces to tell my own story. Like, I was able to legitimately have role-playing sessions in WoW with other players. And I feel like that's not something you can really do in a game like Anthem. One of the games I'm really kind of wishing I had more time for is Fallout 76, because I know there are, like, that game actually gives you more opportunity to, like, do role-playing stuff in. Like, it is a big world that you can just have a bunch of people on a server and, like, all right, we're role-playing as, like, a contingent of Brotherhood of Steel folks or whatever.
Yeah, I feel like WoW used to do a better job of leaving room for the player.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But
they kind of optimized it out.
Yeah, they've definitely cut that out.
I mean, from Cataclysm onwards, like, it's been worse and worse. Like, from the fact that you're interacting with characters that you've interacted with a lot that have no awareness that you existed.
Oh, and the last time I roleplayed in WoW was vanilla, so, you know, grain of salt and whatnot. Rose-tinted glasses are happening for sure here.
I mean, I feel like right now the best roleplay game that's an MMO out there, or with the most active role-playing community, is probably Secret World.
Oh, that makes sense to me.
Probably.
Because, like, it has a very active role-playing community.
I did a very little bit of role-playing in Secret World, and it was a ton of fun.
It's interesting, because you're talking about, like, getting story from games, and I've been playing a bunch of games lately that are not doing that, but I'm also reading a lot more books lately. I think that's interesting, because I was like, I don't feel like I'm missing out on the storytelling that I want in my life. Oh, right, because I've read 14 books this year.
Well, and like another weird thing that's happened, and I talked about this a little bit when I was talking about Assassin's Creed Origin, is a lot of these single-player games have become single-player MMOs. Because like, Assassin's Creed Origins definitely feels like I'm playing a WoW-like game, but single-player.
We've taken all of the grind that we developed and designed in MMOs, and we're putting them in your single-player game for you.
Yep.
That was my complaint about FF12 back in the day. And it's only not a complaint about the current one because you can play it on 4 times speed. Other changes to that game also occurred that made me like it more, but the general idea is definitely still there.
Well, that was a discussion that went in a bunch of different directions all at once.
It did.
It makes me think we don't actually have time for this other topic.
No.
No, not the third topic. We probably do the second topic.
Sure, why
but
not?
then again,
we can just talk about that. We can just talk about that one.
I don't know what the hell that is. So, Ash, what is like Warframe Nightwave?
Something about wolves and radio stations, right?
Hey, cool cats.
Yeah, this week, Warframe decided to replace its alert system with a new system known as Nightwave. For those who didn't know, alerts were random missions that would just show up on the star chart with mostly random rewards. Some resources. There is a resource you can only get this way, for the most part.
Detain, aka Alertium.
It's also the only way to get the Bob on Warframe.
Yep.
And certain cosmetic helmets.
Yeah. And some weapon blueprints, although I don't think any of the
Well,
weapons
all those are
from
bad.
alerts are, yeah. You can get mastery from them.
It's true.
But the real problem is they would show up randomly at all hours of the day and night.
Yeah,
Yes.
so you might be at work or asleep, and yeah.
There was a system when I was serious about Warframe that would send a notification to my phone when certain alerts came up.
I also used this when I was slightly more serious about it, and that's dumb. That entire thing is dumb.
What we
So that's
just
why I
said is
didn't go
dumb.
back to it
Yep.
when I started playing again. So anyway, that system is gone. Just completely gone. In its place is Nightwave, a set of weekly/daily challenges that advance you on a battle pass, except, for free, so you don't have to buy it.
Oh, is this how battle passes work in
Yes,
So
Huh.
this is how battle passes work.
so it's like a
Neat.
stamp card, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And as you go on, they use the sort of syndicate reputation system, even though it doesn't really work the same way. But you advance with Lady Three Dog, aka Nora Knight.
She is great. She's the late night.
she's pirate radio.
She's
Yeah.
Pirate Radio.
Yeah, she's late night pirate radio. I expect her to start playing, jazz at any moment.
And therefore
Here's
you
Bing
can,
Crosby.
Yeah.
and as a result, you can gradually work toward these things using a new currency, because Warframe loves new currencies and new resources,
It's true.
so that you can get these things without having a ridiculous random element.
This makes Warframe control your life less.
An interesting thing, though, is that they're sort of dividing into seasons. The first season is The Wolf of Saturn VI, which is about a Grenier prisoner escapee, and some weird things are happening.
Oh, interesting. I haven't really noticed much story getting told. How am I missing this?
Mostly the story is in her introduction and in things that may happen to you. There are other escapees that may come and attack you on mission. You can attack them if you want.
Okay, that has happened to me.
The wolf himself may interrupt your mission, although that has not happened to me yet.
That has not happened to me yet.
I do want to know what she says, though.
Is he stalker levels of hard?
He is harder than the current Stalker.
So he will murder me, but good.
It's possible. The Stalker kind of shows up in public missions and dies nowadays, so
Yeah, he's not real hard anymore.
I still think the original Stalker was harder than the current Stalker, but that's a separate thing. The original one had a bow that could one-shot you from most of the way across the map.
Yeah. Well, the current Stalker was a little rougher before you could strip his invulnerabilities off of him.
It's also true. But anyway, this contains some familiar rewards like Warframe helmets and aura mods and Nitane extract.
Delicious, delicious Nitane extract.
And then also some unexpected things, like this finally introduces a way to get Warframe slots and weapon slots for free.
Well, that's a thing.
That was previously the only thing that you could not get for free in any way and had to spend platinum on.
Yeah.
Only 2 per season, though.
Yeah, not at a good rate, but it is definitely better than the none that were previously granted.
Yeah.
And then also some nonsense, like the final reward is because they know what the true endgame is. It's the Wolf's armor set. But right before that is an Umbral Forma, which is a special, background first. A Forma is an item that is used to reset the level of a piece of gear and polarize one of the mod slots on it, so you can fit more mods onto it and make it better.
It's New Game Plus for your weapons.
Yes, and Warframes and everything else. It is definitely the resource you probably go through the most of as a player.
Yep. You're only going to put one potato in a thing, but you might put 5 or 6 formas in it. Or more. You can put as many formas in something as you want.
You can.
Some people get silly with it.
You never, ever need to put more than, 6 formas in anything. And most things don't need more than 3. But an Umbral Forma lets you use this thing to add a special type of polarity which you could not previously add, which is used to put a special type of mod that was granted from a quest. Previously, it was possible to use these mods in builds, but you had to basically put them in unpolarized slots and use a lot of Forma to make everything else fit. Now you have one of these per season and can maybe get some new build options available. Specifically, this is only required if you want to use all 3 Umbral mods at max rank.
Which I know there are some things that do.
You would want to have a need for armor, health, and power strength. And yeah, those are things everybody could use mostly.
So have I told you the good news of Valkyr?
I don't think Valkyrie has that much of a use for power strength. Not enough that I would do that.
In a Warcry build?
Guess that's fair. Or is better.
Yep. That is like, I was looking this up because that is the ideal Valkyrie Prime build, is all 3 umbrals.
Nidus is the Warframe I think of first when I think of somebody who wants all of these mods. And Chroma's close second.
But this is some very end-game stuff here.
Yes, this is super endgame.
And we should point out that the end game in Warframe is, like, you don't hit level 60 and you're at the end game.
No.
I am probably not at the end game at this point.
Oh, I'm not even that close.
I'm not even remotely close. I'm pretty Ash is further than I am. In fact, you can't even get to max mastery rank yet. It's physically impossible.
I mean, there is a maximum mastery rank you can currently reach.
Yes.
It's 27.
It's 27 out of 30.
30 is the highest that would have like a useful benefit to you, presumably. Possibly once it becomes possible to hit 31, they'll come up with a reason that means something. Maybe not. Might just be cosmetic.
Your syndicate daily cap is based on your mastery rank.
That's true.
Several other things are also based on your mastery rank, like the highest level enemies you can spawn in the simulacrum.
Most importantly, the fancy chest emblem you can wear. That's what matters.
This game's grind to the top is bonkers.
And entirely unnecessary?
Yes.
Yeah. That's the thing,
But yeah, I can do every piece of content in here.
Yeah, like I'm rocking a gun that is almost perfect. Like if I did some crazy nonsense, I could have a perfect version of this gun, and it would just be like just not possible to make it better.
Yeah, but you don't need it. That's what I do enjoy about this game, is there is always another step.
Yeah. And I definitely don't need this stupid gun. I like it because it's funny, but I was doing just fine before.
But yeah, for the most part, getting rid of the alert system, giving us this new character is really cool. Also, the character's got a great voice actor. I am thrilled to have more radio chatter on my missions.
Yeah, the voice actress for Nora Knight is amazing.
I keep thinking at some point after all these tweaks, Warframe is going to be a coherent game.
I wouldn't bet on it.
I was gonna say, I love Warframe, but
like there are a lot of words you can use to describe it, but I'm not sure coherent is ever going to be one of them.
it's kind of a mess. Like, it's a beautiful mess of systems, and if you want to just keep sort of poking at stuff and like seeing where it leads, you can.
If you want to just grind forever and never have it not be meaningful, Warframe is the game for you.
Speaking of which, if you really, really wanted to, you could grind up the Nightwave rep. 150 rep prisoner at a time, you could do it.
Yeah.
You shouldn't, but good.
You could do it.
I mean, I'm not even going to be able to do, like, I'm probably not going to get 100 Eximus.
Wait, why do we have 100 Xmas?
Ooh.
What, is it Super Christmas?
No, if you kill 100 Eximus, you get a bonus. You get a bonus 5,000 rep. Although I was just looking, there is an Eximus stronghold today, so maybe I'll try that.
Eximus are super fancy.
They're super.
They're the elite enemies.
Yeah,
they're elites.
And killing 100 of them is
special
a lot.
buffs.
Okay.
It's a big ask.
Warframe is
Because I heard both Xmas and Eczema, and I wasn't sure.
Eximus.
Exami? I don't even know.
Exemesis?
I give up on pluralizing made-up words. I play too much 40k for that. On an entirely unrelated note, these Ricola tablets have the weirdest flavor I've ever tasted.
Do you have the honey herb ones or whatever?
Yes.
Yeah, I can't decide if I like it or not.
I've been trying to figure that out for the last 20 minutes. They're really effective. Whatever is in these things has made me cough way less, but there's a lot going on in that little flavor capsule. I don't know how I feel about it.
But after using them for years, I don't think there's a better option.
No, I definitely didn't think... I have definitely never thought cough drops were effective, but I picked these up because, quite frankly, I'm desperate. And they're surprisingly effective. It tastes like I licked a honeybee.
Did it just finish rolling around in the grass?
Yeah.
In somebody's spice cabinet.
And maybe some menthol in there? I don't know.
It's really weird.
Basically, being sick sucks. Like, and I'm tired of being sick
Yeah,
myself.
I'm tired of being sick. Being sick is awful. Don't get sick. Try to avoid it. Apparently, this terrible cough is everywhere. So, like, PSA, drink your orange juice or whatever. Pick up some zinc.
Like, I don't think any of us have necessarily had, like, the name brand flu, but, like, we've had something that's just been just about as bad.
Yeah, it's definitely been going around here, too. And yeah, it doesn't seem like it's actually the flu, but it's not fun.
The problem that I've had is, like, I've thought it was gone 3 separate times.
Oh, don't tell me that.
Then it comes back.
Oh,
and
my God.
I'll feel like crap for a day or two. And then I'll feel better again. And it's not just me, because, like, there's 2 other people that are going through this cycle at work. And it's horrible. It's the worst. So sorry, Tam. That's the fate that lies ahead of you.
Yeah, I don't know what where I got it. If it was from the office when I was traveling for work last week, or the baby on the train back from Portland. That baby was adorable and also a disease vector.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was
pretty much
this
their job
the
description.
baby? Wait, is this the baby or the little kid that you were almost going to play Mario Kart with?
No, I definitely played Mario Kart with the kid on the plane. That part was great. That kid was fine. I mean, maybe died. I don't know, but that kid didn't like sneeze on me and then giggle.
Kids are happy about spreading infection.
Yeah.
Tee-hee-hee, bubonic plague. Also, what a weird ending of the show. Like, if you've made it this far, like, I never know how many people actually make it to the end of our shows, but, like, if we have comments about, like, this, I'll know.
I feel like there's a remark to be made about Grandpa Nurgle here.
Grandpa Nurgle is the best. Which is hilarious since we had that whole lengthy conversation in Slack this week.
Yeah, that was my fault. Also, Grandpa Nurgle is not the best because corn exists.
I don't really imagine Corn as a grandpa.
No.
Yeah, that's fair.
Grandpa Nurgle loves you. Corn wants to murder you.
Corn is a high school coach that hates you.
No, sorry. Corn wants to slaughter you. Kane wants to murder you.
Yes. Come on, look. Kane and Corn are not 2 different things. Like, I'm sorry. Kane is just Corn wearing an elf mask.
You're welcome to try and tell the elves that. Good luck.
Like, I mean, there's too much similarity there.
You know, it's cool. The only 2 elven gods I follow are Aisha and Seorak. Mostly the latter.
Alright, congrats, you lost me.
The laughing god.
Is that like the laughing cow?
Maybe.
They make awesome cheese.
Anyway.
Yeah. Just totally derailed there. Okay. Thanks for tuning in, and hopefully you survived the show, because, I don't know.
Because I'm not totally... We might not.
We might not have.
Anyway, we will see you next week. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
See ya.